The cafeteria tray hit the floor with a crash that echoed through the restricted ward. Soup splashing across polished linoleum, a sandwich skidding under a metal cart. Admiral Jacob Brennan stood over the mess, jaw tight, eyes blazing. The woman he'd just humiliated didn't flinch, didn't apologize, didn't even blink. She just looked at him with those steady gray eyes, and something in that silence made the room hold its breath. 3 decorated officers stood frozen in the doorway. A corpsman's hand hovered over his radio. Nobody moved, because everyone in that corridor suddenly understood what Brennan didn't. He'd just made the biggest mistake of his career. And the quiet woman in plain blue scrubs, the one he'd dismissed as nobody, was about to become the only person in the room who mattered. If you want to see how this story ends, stay with me until the very end. And please, drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Thornhill Naval Medical Complex sat on the northern edge of Grayport like a fortress carved from concrete and glass. 7 stories of reinforced architecture, helipads on the roof, underground bunkers that stretched deeper than most people knew. It wasn't the kind of place you wandered into by accident. Every hallway required clearance. Every door had a code. And everyone who walked those corridors knew exactly where they stood in the chain of command. Except, apparently, for the woman eating soup in Section D. Admiral Jacob Brennan noticed her the moment he stepped through the security checkpoint. He'd been at Thornhill for 3 days overseeing a classified debrief, and he knew the rhythms of this place. The personnel rotations, the shift changes, the faces that belonged and the ones that didn't. This woman didn't belong. She sat alone at a small table near the nurse's station, spooning soup from a plastic container, a sandwich half unwrapped beside her. White female, late 30s, dark blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Scrubs that looked like they'd been through 100 washes. No name tag, no rank insignia, no lanyard with a photo ID swinging from her neck. Nothing that said she had any business being in a restricted military medical ward. Brennan's jaw tightened. He'd seen this before. Civilian contractors who thought a friendly smile got them past security. Administrative staff who wandered into areas above their clearance because nobody stopped them. Sloppiness. The kind of sloppiness that got people killed in the field. He changed direction, boots sharp against the floor. "Excuse me." The woman glanced up. No surprise in her expression, no guilt, just a calm acknowledgement that someone had spoken. "Can I help you?" Her voice was quiet, almost soft. Brennan stopped 3 feet from her table. "I'd like to know who authorized your presence in this section." She set down her spoon. "I'm on break." "That's not what I asked. I'm eating lunch." She said it the way someone might comment on the weather. Matter of fact. Unimpressed. Brennan felt heat rise in his chest. He'd commanded SEAL units in 3 combat zones. Men with decades of experience snapped to attention when he walked into a room. And this woman, this nurse who couldn't even be bothered to wear proper identification, was looking at him like he was interrupting her afternoon. "Section D is restricted to personnel with level 3 clearance or higher," he said, voice clipped. "Are you level 3? Are you asking for credentials? I'm asking you to explain why you're sitting here like you own the place when you clearly don't have authorization." Something flickered in her eyes. Not anger, not fear. Something else. Something that made the air between them feel suddenly heavier. "I have authorization," she said. "Then show me your badge." "I don't wear one." Brennan's hand went to his hip, an old instinct even though he wasn't armed. Everyone in this facility wears identification. Security protocol. Non-negotiable. The woman picked up her spoon again. "I'm aware of the protocol." "Then you're deliberately violating it." "No." She took another bite of soup, chewed slowly, swallowed. "I'm exempt." The sheer audacity of it stunned him for half a second. Then the anger came roaring back, hotter than before. "Exempt." He repeated the word like it tasted bad. "Let me guess, someone told you that you were special. Someone gave you a smile and a wave and said the rules didn't apply to you." She looked up at him again, that steady, unreadable gaze. "Something like that," she said. Brennan felt his control slipping. He'd been in back-to-back meetings for 6 hours. Budget cuts, personnel reviews, a briefing on a mission that had gone sideways in the South China Sea. His patience was already shredded, and now this, some nurse who thought she could sit in a high-security ward and play games with him. "Get up," he said. The woman blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said get up, you're leaving." She didn't move. "I'm finishing my lunch." "No, you're done." For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Somewhere down the hall, a monitor beeped. A door hissed shut. Then Brennan reached down and knocked the tray off the table. It happened fast. The container of soup flipping through the air, broth spraying across the floor, the sandwich sliding under a cart, the plastic tray clattering against the tiles, loud and harsh and final. The woman sat perfectly still. Soup dripped from the edge of the table onto her scrubs. A few droplets had hit her hand. She didn't wipe them away. She just looked at him. And that's when Brennan realized the room had gone completely silent. Not just quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that happens when something shifts. When everyone stops pretending they're not watching and just stops. He glanced around. A corpsman stood frozen near the nurse's station, radio halfway to his mouth. Two officers in dress blues had stopped mid-conversation in the doorway. A woman in a white coat, surgeon by the look of her, stood with a tablet in her hand, staring. Nobody was moving, nobody was breathing, and they were all looking at the woman in the soup-stained scrubs. Not at him, at her. Brennan felt something cold crawl up his spine. Instinct. The same instinct that had kept him alive in Fallujah and Kandahar and a dozen other places where hesitation meant death. The instinct that said, you just made a mistake. But he'd already committed, already crossed the line, and men like Jacob Brennan didn't back down. "You're out of your depth, nurse," he said, voice tight, "and you're out of this ward, now." The woman stood, slowly, controlled. She wiped the soup off her hand with a napkin, folded it neatly, and set it on the table. "You should have asked first," she said. Brennan's laugh came out sharp and bitter. "Asked what? For permission to enforce security protocol? I don't need permission. I'm a flag officer in the United States Navy, and you're a Sir?" The voice came from behind him. The corpsman. Young kid, maybe 25, with the kind of face that still looked like it belonged in high school. Brennan didn't turn around. "Not now." "Sir, please, I said not now." "Admiral Brennan." The corpsman's voice cracked. Actually cracked. "You need to stop." That got his attention. Brennan turned, ready to rip into the kid for insubordination, but the look on the corpsman's face stopped him cold. The kid looked terrified. Not scared of Brennan, scared for him. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Brennan demanded. The corpsman opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Sir, that's..." The doors at the end of the hall banged open. Boots, multiple sets, moving fast. Brennan turned back toward the sound and felt his stomach drop. 4 armed security personnel came through first, rifles held low but ready. Then 2 men in black suits with earpieces and the kind of posture that screamed federal agents. Behind them, a woman in a Navy captain's uniform. And bringing up the rear, moving with the calm authority of someone who didn't need to hurry because everyone else would wait. A man in a charcoal suit with salt and pepper hair and a Pentagon lanyard swinging from his neck. The kind of lanyard that didn't come from human resources. The security team fanned out, controlling the space without a word. The captain stopped just inside the doorway, eyes scanning the room. And the man in the suit walked straight down the corridor, past Brennan, past the corpsman, past the officer still frozen in the doorway. He stopped directly in front of the woman with soup on her scrubs. "Dr. Carter," he said, "we've been waiting for you." The title hit Brennan like a slap. Doctor, not nurse. Doctor. The woman, Carter, nodded once. "I was told 1400 hours. Change of plans." The Joint Chiefs moved the briefing up. Of course they did. She glanced down at her ruined scrubs, then back up at the man. "I'll need 5 minutes to change. Take 10. We'll prep the room." The man turned, finally acknowledging Brennan's existence with a look that could have frozen diesel fuel. "Admiral," he said. Not a greeting, a warning. Brennan's mouth went dry. Who? Deputy Director Marcus Hale, Defense Intelligence Agency." The man's voice was flat, professional, and absolutely devoid of warmth. And you just assaulted a senior intelligence officer in the middle of a classified facility. The word assaulted landed like a gut punch. I didn't, Brennan started. You knocked a tray out of her hands in front of witnesses. Hale's eyes were cold. That's assault, Admiral. And if Dr. Carter chooses to file a report, your career ends today. Brennan looked at the woman. Carter. Dr. Carter. She was brushing soup off her sleeve, expression unchanged. That won't be necessary, she said quietly. Hale raised an eyebrow. You're sure? I'm sure. Your call. He turned back to Brennan. You're dismissed, Admiral. Someone will escort you to your quarters. Wait. Brennan's voice came out hoarse. I need to understand. No, Hale said. You don't. You need to leave. One of the security personnel stepped forward, hand gesturing toward the exit. Not threatening, not aggressive, just expectant. Brennan stood there, mind racing, trying to piece together what the hell had just happened, trying to reconcile the woman he'd dismissed as some lost nurse with the person standing in front of him now. The person a deputy director from the DIA had just called doctor and treated with the kind of deference usually reserved for cabinet members. Carter looked at him, really looked at him. And for the first time, Brennan saw it, the way she held herself, the stillness, the absolute lack of fear. This wasn't a woman who'd stumbled into the wrong place. This was a woman who belonged exactly where she was. And he'd just treated her like garbage. I'm sorry, he said. The words felt weak, inadequate, but they were all he had. Carter tilted her head slightly. Are you sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught? The question hung in the air like smoke. Brennan swallowed. Both. She almost smiled. Almost. At least you're honest. Then she turned and walked toward the corridor, Hale falling into step beside her. The security team moved with them, a protective bubble that made it clear she wasn't just anyone. Brennan watched them go, his entire body numb. The corpsman appeared at his elbow. Sir, I tried to warn you. Who is she? Brennan's voice sounded distant in his own ears. The kid hesitated. I can't say, sir. Classified. Classified. Above my clearance, above most people's clearance. Brennan closed his eyes. Jesus Christ. You should go, sir, before this gets worse. The security officer cleared his throat. Admiral, this way, please. Brennan followed, legs moving on autopilot, down the corridor, through the checkpoint, into an elevator that dropped 3 floors in silence. They put him in a small room with a table, 2 chairs, and a camera in the corner. Not a cell. Not quite. But not freedom either. Someone will be with you shortly, the officer said, and left. Brennan sat down, put his head in his hands. He'd commanded men in war zones, coordinated operations across 3 continents, earned a chest full of medals and the respect of everyone who served under him. And in less than 5 minutes, he'd destroyed it all because he couldn't be bothered to ask a question before making an assumption. The door opened. Brennan looked up, expecting Hale or maybe a lawyer. Instead, he saw the captain who'd arrived with the security team. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, arms crossed. I'm Captain Sarah Ortega, she said, legal counsel for Thornhill's Intelligence Division. Am I being charged? Not yet. She pulled out a chair and sat down across from him. Dr. Carter declined to press assault charges, but that doesn't mean you're off the hook. Brennan nodded slowly. What happens now? Ortega studied him. That depends on you. On me? Dr. Carter requested something. She paused. She wants to talk to you. Brennan blinked. Why? I have no idea. But she was very clear. Before any disciplinary action is taken, she wants 30 minutes with you, alone. Mol sit by semiekas. I don't understand. Ortega leaned forward. Here's what I understand, Admiral. You humiliated a woman in front of her colleagues. You made assumptions based on appearance and dismissed her as insignificant. You ignored warnings from subordinates. And when confronted, you doubled down instead of stepping back. Each word was a hammer blow. That kind of leadership, Ortega continued, gets people killed. And Dr. Carter has spent most of her career cleaning up the messes that kind of leadership creates. Brennan's throat tightened. Who is she? That's not my information to share. But I'll tell you this much. She's saved more lives than you've commanded, and she's operated in places you don't have clearance to know exist. The room felt smaller suddenly, hotter. She wants to talk to me, Brennan said. What does she want to say? Ortega stood. Only one way to find out. She walked to the door, opened it, and stepped aside. Dr. Evelyn Carter walked in. She'd changed out of the soup-stained scrubs into a fresh set. Dark blue, crisp, professional. Her hair was still pulled back in that same simple ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry, nothing that screamed authority or power. But the way she moved, the way she looked at him. Brennan felt like a cadet again. Young, stupid, out of his depth. Admiral shit, Carter said. Not cold, not warm, neutral. Doctor. He stood instinctively. She nodded to Ortega. Thank you, Captain. We'll be fine. Ortega hesitated. You're sure? I'm sure. Ortega left. The door clicked shut. Brennan and Carter stood on opposite sides of a small table in a windowless room, and the silence stretched between them like a wire pulled tight. Sit, Carter said. Brennan sat. Carter pulled out the other chair, turned it around, and sat with her arms resting on the back. Casual, controlled. You want to know who I am? She said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Brennan said. Why? He blinked. Because I need to understand what just happened. No. Carter shook her head. You need to understand who you just screwed with. That's not the same thing. Brennan felt his face heat. That's not... It's exactly what you mean. She said it calmly. No accusation, just fact. You want to know if I'm important enough to ruin your career, if I'm connected enough to make this hurt. You want to know where you stand. He opened his mouth, closed it. Because she was right. I'm not going to tell you my service record, Carter said. I'm not going to list my credentials or name drop the people I've worked with. You don't get to know that. Not because it's classified, though most of it is, but because you haven't earned it. The words stung more than they should have. Then why are you here, bots? Brennan asked. Carter leaned back slightly. Because I want to understand something too. What? Why you saw a woman eating lunch and decided she was a problem. Brennan frowned. You were in a restricted area without identification. So you knocked food out of my hands. I told you to leave, you refused. And that justified assault? The word made him flinch. I didn't think of it as assault. What did you think of it as? He hesitated, searching for the right words, the defensible words. Carter waited. I thought, Brennan exhaled, I thought you were being disrespectful, arrogant. I thought you needed to be reminded that rules exist for a reason. Did you ask me why I wasn't wearing a badge? You said you were exempt, and you didn't believe me. I didn't know you. So you assumed I was lying. Carter's voice didn't rise, didn't sharpen, but the weight of it pressed down on him anyway. You saw a woman without visible rank, and you decided she had no authority, no value, no reason to be treated with basic respect. That's exactly what you did, Admiral. She leaned forward. And here's what terrifies me. You're not some boot camp drill sergeant. You're not a low-level officer on a power trip. You command SEAL teams, you make life and death decisions, and you couldn't see past your own assumptions long enough to ask a single clarifying question. The truth of it sat in his chest like a stone. I made a mistake, he said quietly. Yes, you did. Carter stood, walked to the corner of the room, then turned back. Do you know how many operators I've pulled out of situations that started with someone making assumptions? Someone seeing a village and assuming hostiles. Someone seeing a woman and assuming weakness. Someone seeing a local and assuming enemy. Brennan said nothing. Assumptions get people killed, Carter continued. And leaders who can't set aside their ego long enough to ask questions get their teams killed. He felt something crack inside him. Not anger, not defensiveness, something deeper. Shame. You're right, he said. I was wrong, completely wrong, and I'm sorry. Carter studied him. Are you sorry because you got caught, or because you understand why it was wrong? The same question she'd asked before, but this time he had a different answer. Both, he said, but more the second one. She nodded slowly. Good. That's a start. What happens now? Carter sat back down. That depends on what you do next. What do you want me to do? I want you to learn. She said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I want you to take this moment and let it change you. Not because you're afraid of consequences, not because you want to save your career, but because you actually give a damn about being better. Brennan met her eyes. I do. Then prove it. The door opened. Deputy Director Hale stepped inside, followed by Captain Ortega. Time's up, Hale said. Dr. Carter, the briefing room is ready. Carter stood. Thank you. She walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back at Brennan. One more thing, Admiral. Yes? The most dangerous person in the room doesn't need to prove it. She held his gaze. Remember that. Then she was gone. Hale lingered in the doorway. Admiral Brennan, you're being reassigned pending a full review of this incident. You'll be notified of next steps within 48 hours. Understood. Hale started to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, she could have ended you. One word from her and you'd be lucky to retire with half your pension. Why didn't she? Hale's expression was unreadable. Because she spent her whole career saving people who didn't deserve it. I guess old habits die hard. He left. Ortega followed. The door closed. Brennan sat alone in the small room, staring at the empty chair across from him. Somewhere above him, in a briefing room he'd never see, Dr. Evelyn Carter was probably sitting down with people who actually understood who she was, what she'd done, why she mattered, and he was here, grounded, humiliated, waiting to find out if his career would survive the next 48 hours. But for the first time in a long time, Jacob Brennan wasn't thinking about his career. He was thinking about the woman he'd dismissed, the assumptions he'd made, the moment he'd let his ego override his judgment, and the quiet, devastating lesson she'd just taught him without raising her voice once. The security officer opened the door. Admiral, we're ready to escort you to temporary quarters. Brennan stood, followed, walked through corridors that suddenly felt unfamiliar. Somewhere in this building, there were answers, files, records, something that would tell him who Evelyn Carter really was. But he had a feeling that even if he found them, even if he read every classified document with her name on it, he still wouldn't truly understand. Because some people couldn't be measured by their credentials. Some people were just more, and he'd almost destroyed himself because he'd been too arrogant to see it. The officer stopped at a door. Your quarters, sir. Someone will bring your belongings. Brennan stepped inside. The door locked behind him. He sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands, and tried to figure out how the hell he was going to fix this, if it could even be fixed at all. The temporary quarters were sterile. White walls, gray carpet, a bed that felt like it belonged in a barracks. Brennan sat on the edge of it for 20 minutes before he realized he was still holding his phone, staring at the black screen like it might tell him what to do next. It didn't. He set it down on the nightstand and stood, pacing the narrow space between the bed and the desk. 3 steps one way, 3 steps back. His mind kept replaying the moment, the tray hitting the floor, the soup splashing, the look in Carter's eyes. Not anger, not shock, just that calm, unshakable awareness. Like she'd seen worse, done worse, survived worse, and he'd treated her like she was nothing. A knock on the door broke his spiral. Brennan crossed the room and opened it. A young ensign stood there with a duffel bag, Brennan's personal effects from the room he'd been using before everything went sideways. Sir. The ensign set the bag down just inside the door. Your belongings. Thank you. The kid hesitated. Is there anything else you need, Admiral? Brennan almost laughed. What he needed was a time machine and a better sense of judgment. But he just shook his head. "No, I'm fine." The ensign left. Brennan closed the door, picked up the duffel, and dropped it on the bed. He unzipped it mechanically. Uniforms, toiletries, a book he'd been reading about asymmetric warfare. Everything neatly packed, everything in its place. His life used to feel like that. Ordered, controlled, predictable. Now it felt like standing on ice that was cracking under his feet. He sat back down, elbows on his knees, and tried to think through the next 48 hours. Hale had said there'd be a review. That meant interviews, statements, maybe a formal inquiry. Carter had declined to press charges, but that didn't mean the Navy would let it slide. Assault of a senior officer, even if she wasn't in uniform, was serious. Career-ending serious. But it wasn't the career that gnawed at him. It was the look on the corpsman's face, the way everyone in that corridor had frozen, the way Carter had stood up, calm and controlled, and made him feel like a recruit who'd just failed his first drill. He'd been so sure, so certain she was out of place, and he'd been completely, catastrophically wrong. A soft chime from his phone pulled him out of his thoughts. He picked it up, expecting a message from his aide or maybe a notification about the review. Instead, it was an email. Encrypted. Sender: Captain Sarah Ortega. Brennan opened it. Admiral Brennan, Dr. Carter has requested your presence at a briefing scheduled for 1900 hours in Conference Room 7, Sublevel 2. This is not optional. Bring your security clearance credentials. Do not discuss this with anyone. Captain Ortega Brennan read it twice, then a third time. Carter wanted him at a briefing. Not a disciplinary hearing, not a formal inquiry. A briefing. He checked the time. 17:30, 90 minutes. He stood, grabbed his uniform jacket, and tried to ignore the knot tightening in his chest. Sublevel 2 wasn't a place most people at Thornhill even knew existed. Brennan had been down here once, years ago, for a classified meeting about an operation in the Gulf. The corridors were narrower than the main floors, the lighting harsher. No windows, no natural light, just concrete and steel and the faint hum of ventilation systems working overtime. Conference Room 7 was at the end of a long hallway. 2 armed guards stood outside the door, both in full tactical gear. They didn't salute when Brennan approached, just scanned his credentials and stepped aside. The door opened. Brennan stepped inside and stopped. The room was bigger than he'd expected. A long table in the center, surrounded by a dozen chairs. Screens on the walls showing maps, satellite imagery, and data streams he didn't recognize. And standing near the head of the table, talking quietly with Deputy Director Hale, was Dr. Evelyn Carter. She'd changed again, this time into something that looked more official. Dark slacks, a charcoal blazer, a white blouse. Her hair was still pulled back, but now there was a lanyard around her neck with a badge that had more clearance codes than Brennan had ever seen on a single ID. She glanced up when he entered. No smile, no acknowledgement beyond a brief nod. Hale looked over. "Admiral, take a seat." Brennan moved to the far end of the table, as far from Carter as he could get without looking like he was hiding. He sat, folded his hands in front of him, and waited. The door opened again. 2 more people entered. A man in a Navy captain's uniform Brennan didn't recognize, and a woman in civilian clothes with the kind of posture that screamed intelligence analyst. They sat without speaking. Then another door at the opposite end of the room opened, and 3 more people filed in. All in suits, all with the same hard, unreadable expressions. Brennan counted. 9 people total, including himself. Whatever this briefing was, it wasn't small. Hale moved to the head of the table and tapped a control panel. The screens on the walls shifted, displaying a single image, a grainy photograph of a man in his 40s, Middle Eastern features standing in what looked like a crowded market. At 0600 this morning, Hale began, we received credible intelligence that Khalid Rashad, a high-value target wanted for coordinating attacks on coalition forces in 3 countries, was spotted in a civilian hospital in Al-Mahra province. The room was silent. Rashad has been off-grid for 18 months, Hale continued. No confirmed sightings, no communications intercepts, nothing, until now. He tapped the panel again. The image changed, a different photo, this one showing the same man being wheeled into a building on a gurney. He's being treated for complications from a shrapnel wound sustained during an airstrike last year. The wound became infected. He needs surgery, or he dies. Brennan's mind raced. A high-value target in a civilian hospital, vulnerable, accessible, but also surrounded by innocents. "We have a 12-hour window," Hale said. "After that, he's either dead or moved to a location we can't track. The president has authorized a tactical extraction." One of the suits leaned forward. "What's the asset situation on the ground?" Hale glanced at Carter. "Dr. Carter will brief you on that." Carter stood, moved to the front of the room, and the screen shifted again, this time showing a detailed map of a hospital complex. The facility is a 3-story structure on the outskirts of a town with approximately 15,000 residents, she said. Her voice was calm, clinical. Rashad is on the 2nd floor, west wing, under guard by at least 4 armed men. The hospital staff are unaware of his identity. As far as they know, he's a local militia leader being treated for injuries. She zoomed in on the map. "We have one asset inside, a physician who's been working with us for the past 6 months. He confirmed Rashad's identity and the timeline for surgery. The surgery is scheduled for 2200 local time. If we're going to move, it has to be before then." The Navy captain Brennan didn't recognize spoke up. "What's the extraction plan?" Carter looked at Hale. Hale nodded. "We insert a 4-person team via helicopter at a landing zone 3 clicks from the hospital," Carter said. "They move in on foot, enter through the service entrance on the east side, neutralize Rashad's guards, and extract him to a secondary LZ for exfil." "Civilian casualties?" one of the analysts asked. "Minimized," Carter said. "The hospital has a staff of 30. Most will be on the 1st floor or in the emergency wing. The 2nd floor is quiet after 1900. We move fast, we move clean, and we're out before anyone realizes what happened." Brennan listened, his mind working through the logistics. It was a solid plan, tight, but risky. One wrong move and you had armed men fighting in a building full of sick people. "What's the fallback if it goes wrong?" he asked. The room went quiet. Everyone looked at him. Carter met his eyes. "There is no fallback, Admiral. If it goes wrong, the team extracts without the target, migis isigi sat the target, and we lose him. And the asset inside? Burns their cover and disappears." Brennan frowned. "That's not much of a safety net." "No," Carter said. "It's not." Hale stepped forward. "Which is why we need someone with operational experience to oversee the mission from here, someone who understands ground tactics and can make real-time decisions if things go sideways." He paused, looking directly at Brennan. "Dr. Carter recommended you." Brennan felt the air leave his lungs. "What?" "She said you have more experience coordinating SEAL operations than anyone else in this facility," Hale continued, "and that despite your recent lapse in judgment, you're still one of the best tactical minds in the Navy." Brennan looked at Carter. She stood perfectly still, expression neutral. "Why?" he asked. "Because lives are on the line," she said simply, "and I don't let personal feelings get in the way of doing the job right." The weight of it hit him like a wave. She'd humiliated him, dressed him down, made him feel like the biggest idiot in the building, and now she was handing him a lifeline. Not because she forgave him, not because she liked him, because the mission mattered more than her ego. "I'll do it," Brennan said. Hale nodded. "Good. You'll work directly with Dr. Carter. She's running point on intelligence. You're running tactical oversight. The operation launches at 2100. You have 2 hours to get up to speed." The room started to clear. People stood, gathered tablets and files, and headed for the doors. Brennan stayed seated, trying to process what had just happened. Carter walked over, stopped in front of him. "Come with me," she said. "We need to talk." She led him down another corridor, past more guards, into a smaller room with a single table and 2 monitors. The door closed behind them. Carter pulled out a chair, sat, and gestured for Brennan to do the same. He sat. "You're wondering why I picked you," she said. "Yeah. It's not because I think you've learned your lesson. It's not because I've forgiven you. And it's definitely not because I trust you." Brennan nodded slowly. "Then why?" "Because you're good at your job." So she said it flatly. No warmth, no encouragement, just fact. You've run more successful operations than most officers twice your age. You know how to read a battlefield. You know how to make hard calls under pressure. And right now I need someone who can do that. Even after what I did? Especially after what you did. She leaned forward. You made a mistake. A big one. But you didn't try to lie about it. You didn't make excuses. And when I asked if you were sorry, you told me the truth. That counts for something. Brennan felt something loosen in his chest. Not relief, not forgiveness, but something close to hope. I won't let you down, he said. Good, because if you do, people die. And I don't let that happen twice. She turned to the monitors and pulled up a live feed, satellite imagery of the hospital in Al-Mara province. Here's what you need to know, she said. Our asset inside is a surgeon named Dr. Tariq Mansour. He's been feeding us information for 6 months. Rashad's guards trust him because he saved the life of one of their commanders last year. He's scheduled to assist with Rashad's surgery tonight. Brennan studied the feed. How reliable is he? As reliable as any asset in a war zone. He's risking his life every day he stays in that hospital. And if the guards suspect him, they kill him. Carter said it without emotion. Which is why we move fast. We get in, we grab Rashad, and we're gone before anyone has time to think. Brennan nodded. What's the team composition? Carter pulled up another screen. 4 personnel files. All SEALs, all with combat experience in the region. Lieutenant Commander Reese is running point, she said. He's done 3 extractions like this. 2 successful, 1 abort. The rest of the team is solid. They know the risks. Do they know about Mansour? Only Reese. The others think we're relying on satellite intel and local informants. Brennan frowned. Why keep them in the dark? Because the fewer people who know about Mansour, the safer he is. If someone gets captured, they can't give up what they don't know. It made sense. Cold sense. The kind of logic that saved lives by sacrificing trust. What's my role? Brennan asked. You monitor the operation from here. You have direct comms with Reese. If something goes wrong, you make the call. Abort, push forward, or adjust the plan. I'll be feeding you real-time intelligence from the asset and satellite surveillance. And if I make the wrong call? Carter looked at him. Then we both live with it. The door opened. Hale stepped in. Team's prepping. Wheels up in 90 minutes. Carter stood. We'll be ready. Hale left. Carter turned back to Brennan. One more thing, she said. This mission is classified. You don't talk about it. You don't write about it. You don't even think about it after tonight. Understood? Understood. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. Let's get to work. The next 90 minutes passed in a blur. Brennan reviewed the files, memorized the layout of the hospital, studied the terrain around the LZ. Carter moved between screens, updating intel, coordinating with assets on the ground, checking weather patterns and drone surveillance. They didn't talk much. Didn't need to. This was work. Pure, focused, high-stakes work. At 20:45, Hale's voice came through the comm system. Team is airborne. ETA to LZ is 32 minutes. Brennan pulled on a headset, adjusted the mic. Copy that. Carter sat beside him, her own headset on, fingers moving across a tablet. The screens in front of them showed multiple feeds, satellite imagery, infrared overlays, comms traffic from the region. One screen displayed a small blinking dot moving across a map. The helicopter. Brennan watched it, his pulse steady. This part he knew. This part made sense. Viper 1, this is Overwatch, he said into the mic. Radio check, a voice crackled back. Lieutenant Commander Reese, Overwatch, Viper 1, read you Lima Charlie. Copy, we have eyes on your position. LZ looks clear. Roger that, proceeding as planned. Carter glanced at Brennan. Mansour just sent a signal. Surgery's been delayed 30 minutes. Rashad's vitals are unstable. Brennan's jaw tightened. Does that change the timeline? No, it gives us a bigger window. They're moving slower, which means fewer people in the halls. Good. The helicopter dot moved closer to the LZ. Brennan switched to the infrared feed. 4 heat signatures inside the aircraft. Clean, no complications. 20 minutes later, Reese's voice came back. Overwatch, Viper 1. On the ground. Moving to target. Copy. Hospital is quiet. No unusual activity. Brennan tracked their progress on the map. 4 dots moving in formation, approaching the east entrance. Smooth, professional. Carter's tablet buzzed. She read the message, frowned. What? Brennan asked. Mansour says there's an extra guard on the 2nd floor. Wasn't there an hour ago? How many total? 5 now, 1 more than expected. Brennan keyed the mic. Viper 1, be advised. 5 hostiles on target floor. Repeat, 5 hostiles. Copy, adjusting. The dots reached the building, paused, then disappeared from the external feed as they moved inside. Brennan switched to a different camera, an internal feed from a security camera Mansour had accessed. Grainy, black and white, but enough to see the hallway leading to Rashad's room. 2 guards stood outside the door. Another sat in a chair near the nurse's station. The other 2 were out of frame. Viper 1, Overwatch. Visual confirmation on 3 hostiles. 2 at the door, 1 at the station. Copy. Brennan watched the screen, waiting. Every second felt like an hour. Then movement. A flash of shadow at the edge of the frame. The guard at the nurse's station slumped forward, silent, fast. One of Reese's team appeared, dragging the body out of sight. The 2 guards at the door turned, hands going to their weapons. Too slow. 2 more shadows. 2 muzzle flashes, suppressed, barely visible. Both guards dropped. Brennan exhaled. Clean. Carter didn't respond. Her eyes were locked on another screen. Viper 1, this is Overwatch, Brennan said. 3 down. Where are the other 2? Checking now. A pause, then Reese's voice, tight. Overwatch, we have a problem. Brennan's stomach dropped. Go ahead. 2 more hostiles just entered the hallway. They're armed. They see the bodies. On the security feed, Brennan saw them. 2 men in tactical gear, rifles raised, moving toward the room where Rashad was. Can you neutralize? Brennan asked. Negative. Too many civilians in the corridor. We engage. People get caught in the crossfire. Brennan's mind raced. Abort? Push through? Wait. Carter leaned in. Mansour can distract them. He's close. How? He'll trigger a medical emergency in the next room. Pull them away. Brennan keyed the mic. Viper 1, stand by. We're creating a diversion. Copy. Carter sent a message on her tablet. 10 seconds later, an alarm sounded on the security feed. The 2 guards turned, shouting. 1 ran toward the sound. The other stayed put. Viper 1, 1 hostile down. 1 still in play. Reese's voice came back. We can take him. Clear the shot. Brennan looked at the feed. The guard was standing directly in front of a window. Behind him, a nurse walked past, oblivious. Negative? Brennan said. Civilian in the line of fire. She's moving. Give me 5 seconds. Brennan watched. The nurse stopped, turned, looked at something on a chart. Viper 1 hold. Overwatch. We're running out of time. The nurse moved again, stepped to the side. Out of the line. Take the shot. A muzzle flash. The guard dropped. Hostile down. Moving on target. Brennan's pulse hammered in his ears. The team moved into the room. 30 seconds passed. 40. Then Reese's voice. Package secured. Exfilling now. Copy. LZ is clear. Extraction in 10. The dots reappeared on the map, moving back through the building. Fast. No hesitation. Brennan switched to the external feed. The helicopter was already inbound, rotors visible in the infrared. 5 minutes later, Reese's voice crackled through. Overwatch Viper 1, we are airborne. Package secure. RTB. Brennan leaned back in his chair, exhaling hard. Copy. Good work. Carter closed her tablet. Mansour's clear. He's out of the building. Brennan pulled off his headset. His hands were shaking, just slightly, adrenaline draining. That was close, he said. Yeah. Carter stood, stretched. But it worked. Hale appeared in the doorway. Status? Package secured, Brennan said. Team's en route home. Hale nodded. Good. Debrief at 0800 tomorrow. He left. Brennan and Carter sat in the quiet room, the screen still glowing but the tension finally easing. You did well, Carter said. Brennan looked at her. You set this up. I gave you the opportunity. You made the calls. You could have tanked me, told Hale I wasn't fit for this. I could have. She met his eyes. But I needed someone who could do the job. And you did. Brennan shook his head. I don't understand you. You don't have to. She stood, gathered her things. Carter, Brennan said. She paused. Thank you. She looked at him for a long moment. Don't thank me yet, Admiral. This isn't over. What do you mean? Before she could answer, the door burst open. A junior officer stumbled in, face pale. Ma'am, Admiral, we have a situation. Brennan stood. What kind of situation? The extraction team. They're under fire. Helicopter's been hit. The room went cold. Carter spun back to the monitors, pulled up the comms feed. Static. Then Reese's voice, broken and frantic. Overwatch, taking heavy fire, engines failing. We're going down. The feed cut to static. On the satellite imagery, the helicopter dots started to fall. Brennan's hand slammed down on the comms panel. Viper 1, say again. What's your status? Nothing but static. Carter was already moving, fingers flying across her tablet, pulling up every available feed. Satellite imagery flickered onto the main screen, the helicopter a bright signature against the dark landscape, spinning, trailing smoke. They're losing altitude, she said, voice tight but controlled. 1,200 feet and dropping fast. Brennan switched frequencies. Any station, this is Overwatch Actual. We have a bird down in Sector 7. I need immediate QRF support. A voice came back. Ops Center, calm despite the chaos. Overwatch, nearest QRF is 40 minutes out. 40 minutes? Brennan's voice cracked. They don't have 40 minutes. Carter's eyes stayed locked on the screen. The helicopter dot was falling, arcing east, away from the original LZ. She zoomed in, tracking the trajectory. They're heading for the industrial sector, she said. Old factory district, abandoned buildings, no civilians. But no cover either, Brennan shot back. They crashed there. They're sitting ducks. Viper 1, this is Overwatch. Carter's voice cut through the static, sharp and clear. If you can hear us, we're tracking your descent. You're coming down in a factory zone 2 clicks from the hospital. Hostiles will converge on your position. You need to move the second you're on the ground. Static. Then a voice. Reese, barely audible through the interference. Copy. Trying to control descent. Brace for impact. The line went dead. On the screen, the helicopter dot jerked once, twice, then stopped moving. Altitude, 0. Brennan felt ice in his veins. Did they survive? Carter didn't answer. She was already pulling up a different feed, infrared satellite overlay. The crash site glowed white-hot, debris scattered in a rough circle. Then, slowly, 4 smaller heat signatures separated from the wreckage, moving, staggering, but moving. They're alive, she breathed. Brennan keyed the mic. Viper 1, Overwatch. We have visual on 4 signatures at the crash site. Confirm you're mobile. A long pause. Then Reese's voice, strained and rough. Overwatch? Viper 1. We're intact. 2 injuries, 1 critical. Package is secure, but we're compromised. What's the tactical situation? Unknown. Can't see past the smoke. Wait. The sound of gunfire erupted in the background. Sharp cracks. Close. Contact! Multiple hostiles east side. Carter zoomed in. More heat signatures appeared on the infrared. 8, 10, 12, converging from the direction of the hospital. Rashad's men, she said. They know where the team went down. Brennan's mind raced. 4 operators, 2 injured, 1 critical, against a dozen or more hostiles on their home turf. The math was brutal. Viper 1, how long can you hold? Not long. Reese's breathing was labored. We're in a factory shell, partial walls, no roof, They'll flank us in minutes. Carter turned to Brennan. We need options. Now. He pulled up the tactical map, studied the terrain. The factory district was a maze of collapsed buildings and open yards. No natural choke points. No easy defensible positions. What about air support? He asked. Closest strike asset is 70 minutes out, Carter said. Drones are grounded due to weather over the target area. Then we evacuate them on foot. To where? QRF is still 35 minutes away. They'll never make it. Brennan's fist clenched. Then what the hell do we do? Carter's jaw tightened. We buy them time. How? She didn't answer. Instead, she opened a secure channel on her tablet and started typing. Brennan watched her. Carter? What are you doing? Calling in a favor. From who? Someone who owes me. Before he could press her, the door burst open again. Hale strode in, face grim, trailed by 2 Pentagon staffers and Captain Ortega. Status, Hale demanded. Viper 1 is down and under fire, Brennan said. 4 survivors, 2 injured. They're pinned in a factory shell with hostiles closing in. QRF is 35 minutes out. Hale's expression darkened. Can they last that long? No. One of the staffers stepped forward. What about the package? Is Rashad secure? Brennan turned on him. 4 Americans are about to die, and you're asking about the package? Admiral, the package is irrelevant if we lose the team. Hale held up a hand. Both of you stand down. He looked at Carter. You have a play? She nodded. I'm working on it. Work faster. On the comms, Reese's voice cut through. Overwatch, we're taking fire from 3 sides now. They're coordinating. Professional. Carter's tablet chimed. She read the message, then looked at Hale. I can get them extraction, but it's not official. Hale's eyes narrowed. Explain. I have a local asset with access to a vehicle and heavy weapons. He can reach the team in 15 minutes and provide cover while they move to a secondary exfil point. What kind of asset? Carter hesitated. The kind we don't put in reports. Hale stared at her. You're talking about a non-sanctioned operator. I'm talking about someone who can save our people. And if it goes wrong, then it goes wrong. But they're dead anyway if we don't try. The room went silent. Brennan watched Hale, saw the calculations running behind his eyes. Risk versus reward. Official channels versus results. Hale exhaled. Do it. Carter sent the message. 10 seconds later, a reply came back. She read it, nodded. He's moving. Brennan keyed the mic. Viper 1. Help is inbound. 15 minutes. You need to hold. Reese's voice was tight. Copy. We'll do our best. The next 15 minutes felt like drowning in slow motion. Brennan watched the infrared feed as the hostiles closed in, forming a loose perimeter around the factory. Carter coordinated with her asset via encrypted messages, guiding him through side streets and alleys. Hale paced behind them, silent but radiating tension. On the comms, the sound of gunfire was constant now. Reese called out targets. Another voice, one of the team members, reported ammo counts. Low, getting lower. Then a new heat signature appeared on the screen. A vehicle, moving fast from the south. That's him? Carter said. The vehicle reached the edge of the factory district and stopped. A single figure got out, dragging something heavy from the back. What's he carrying, Brennan asked. Carter zoomed in. PKM machine gun, Soviet era. He knows how to use it. The figure moved into position on a rooftop overlooking the factory. 30 seconds later, the machine gun opened up. The effect was immediate. The hostiles scattered, diving for cover as heavy rounds tore through walls and vehicles. The coordinated advance fell apart. Reese's voice came through, startled. Overwatch, who the hell is shooting? Friendly fire, Brennan said. You've got cover. Move now. Copy. Moving. On the screen, the 4 signatures shifted, dragging the 5th, the critical injury, toward the west side of the factory. The machine gun kept firing, controlled bursts, pinning the hostiles down. But then one of the hostile signatures moved, fast, flanking. Carter, Brennan said. She saw it. He's going for the asset. The hostile reached the base of the rooftop, climbed. The machine gun fell silent. No, Carter whispered. A flash on the infrared. The hostile's signature went dark. The machine gun started up again. Carter exhaled. He's clear. Brennan switched channels. Viper 1, how far to the exfil point? 200 meters, but we're carrying dead weight. We're not moving fast. Hostiles are regrouping. You've got maybe 5 minutes before they figure out where you're going. Understood. The team kept moving, slow and uneven. The asset on the rooftop shifted positions, firing short bursts to keep the pressure on. But the hostiles were adapting. 2 of them broke off, circling wide to cut off the escape route. Viper 1, you've got 2 hostiles moving to intercept, southwest corner. We see them. Gunfire. One hostile signature blinked out. The other returned fire. Then one of the team signatures stumbled, fell. Brennan's heart stopped. Viper 1, man down? Negative, just stumbled. Keep moving. They reached the exfil point, a narrow alley between 2 collapsed buildings. The asset's vehicle was already there, engine running. Overwatch. We're at the vehicle, Reese said. Loading now. Copy. QRF is 10 minutes out. Get clear of the area and link up at grid reference. Wait. Reese's voice changed. Overwatch. The package. He's not breathing. Brennan froze. Say again? Rashad, he's not breathing. I think he's gone. Carter's face went pale. She pulled up the medical telemetry, whatever data they had from the field. Flatline. Confirmed package is deceased, she said quietly. Confirmed. He must have injuries from the crash. Internal bleeding. We didn't catch it in time. The room felt like all the air had been sucked out. Hale closed his eyes. One of the staffers swore under his breath. Brennan forced his voice steady. Copy. Secure the body and continue exfil. Roger. The vehicle peeled out, heading south. The asset on the rooftop fired one last burst, then disappeared. Carter closed her tablet. QRF will intercept them in 8 minutes. They'll be safe. Hale turned to her. The package is dead. Yes. We lost a high-value target because of a helicopter crash. We lost a high-value target because someone shot down our helicopter, Carter corrected. This wasn't bad luck. This was an ambush. Hale's eyes sharpened. Explain. Carter pulled up the comms log. The team was hit 30 seconds after leaving the hospital airspace. That's not random ground fire. That's coordinated anti-air. Someone knew we were coming, Brennan said. Or someone talked, Hale replied. Carter shook her head. Mansour didn't give us up. He's been rock solid for 6 months. Then who? Nobody had an answer. Ortega spoke up from the corner. What about the team? Are they compromised? No, Carter said. Only Reese knew about Mansour, and Reese is solid. Hale rubbed his face. This is a disaster. It's not over yet, Brennan said. We got our people out. That counts for something. We were supposed to get Rashad. The president authorized this operation to bring him in alive. We have a corpse and a burned asset. We have 4 operators who are still breathing, Brennan shot back. I'll take that over the alternative. Hale stared at him. You're out of your depth, Admiral. Maybe, but I'm not wrong. For a moment, the 2 men locked eyes. Then Hale turned away. Debrief is at 0600. Dr. Carter, I want a full intelligence workup on how they knew we were coming. Admiral Brennan, you're done here. Return to your quarters. Sir, that's an order. Brennan bit back his response, nodded, turned to leave. Carter caught his arm. Wait. He stopped. She glanced at Hale, then back at Brennan. Walk with me. They left the operations room together, moving down the corridor in silence. Brennan's mind was still spinning. Rashad dead, the team barely alive. The mission a disaster despite the extraction. Carter led him to an empty briefing room and closed the door. You did well, she said. Brennan laughed bitterly. We lost the package. We saved 4 lives. That's not nothing. Hale doesn't see it that way. Hale sees everything through the lens of political optics. You see it through the lens of the people on the ground. That's the difference. Brennan slumped into a chair. I should have seen the ambush coming. How? We had no intel suggesting Rashad's people had anti-air capabilities. Someone knew? Someone always knows. Carter sat across from him. You think there's a leak, don't you? She didn't answer right away, just studied him with those steady gray eyes. I think, she said slowly, that this operation was more complicated than anyone realized, and I think we're about to find out just how complicated. Brennan frowned. What does that mean? Before she could respond, her tablet buzzed. She glanced at it. Her expression shifted, surprise, then something darker. What? Brennan asked. She turned the tablet toward him. On the screen was a message, encrypted, short. Mansour is missing. No contact for 6 hours. Assume compromised. Brennan's blood ran cold. The asset? Gone. Dead? Unknown. But if Rashad's people have him... She trailed off. Brennan stood. We need to tell Hale. No. Carter, if we tell Hale, he pulls every asset we have in the region. We lose years of intelligence work. And if we don't tell him, Mansour dies. Mansour knew the risks. He signed up for this. Brennan stared at her. You're just going to let him burn? I'm going to find out what happened before I make a move that gets more people killed. That's not your call. Yes, Carter said quietly. It is. The room went silent. Brennan realized suddenly that he was looking at a side of Evelyn Carter he hadn't seen before. Not the calm professional, not the patient teacher. This was something else, something harder, colder. Who are you? He asked. She stood. Someone who's made harder choices than this and survived them. By letting people die? By knowing when to save them and when to let them go. Brennan shook his head. I can't do that. Then you'll never make it in this world, Admiral. She moved toward the door. Carter. She stopped. If you're not going to tell Hale, what are you going to do? She looked back at him. I'm going to get Mansour out. Myself. Brennan's jaw dropped. You can't be serious. I've done it before. This isn't some back alley extraction. This is enemy territory. Rashad's people will be looking for payback. Which is why I'm not taking a team. I'm going alone. That's suicide. No, Carter said. It's the only way. Brennan crossed the room, stood between her and the door. I'm not letting you do this. You don't have a choice. Like hell I don't. I'll go to Hale right now. Carter's eyes hardened. And tell him what? That I'm planning an unsanctioned rescue operation for an asset he doesn't officially know about? You think that ends well for anyone? It ends better than you dying in a factory in Al-Mahrah. I'm not going to die. You don't know that. Yes, she said. I do. Brennan stared at her, saw the absolute certainty in her expression. The same certainty she'd had when she stood up to him in the cafeteria, when she'd chosen to teach him instead of destroy him. Why? Well, he asked. Why risk everything for one man? Carter's voice softened, just slightly. Because I'm the reason he's there. I recruited him. I promised him we'd protect him, and I don't break my promises. Brennan felt something shift inside him. Understanding, recognition. This wasn't about strategy. It wasn't about intelligence. It was about honor. The kind of honor that didn't show up in reports or briefings. The kind that cost you everything and gave you nothing back except the ability to look at yourself in the mirror. Then I'm coming with you, he said. Carter shook her head. No. You need backup. I need someone who won't get in the way. I've run more operations than you can count. I know how to move in hostile territory. This isn't a SEAL mission, Brennan. This is Black Ops. No support, no backup, no rules. Then teach me. She stopped, looked at him. You said I needed to learn, Brennan continued. That I needed to understand what it means to operate at your level. So teach me, right now. Carter studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Okay, she said. But if you slow me down, I leave you behind. Deal. She pulled out her tablet, started typing. We leave in 2 hours. There's a cargo flight heading to a base 40 clicks from the hospital. I can get us on it. What about clearance? I'll handle it. And weapons? There's a cache at the base. We'll gear up there. Brennan nodded. What's the plan? Carter pulled up a map. Mansour's last known location was his apartment in the city. If Rashad's people have him, that's where they'll start. We go in quiet, find him, and extract before anyone knows we're there. And if he's already dead, then we confirm it and get out. That's not much of a plan. It's the only one we have. Brennan looked at the map, studied the terrain, the routes, the risks. It was insane, reckless, a career-ending move if anyone found out. But Carter was right. If they didn't go, Mansour was dead. And if Mansour was dead, it was because they'd asked him to risk everything and then left him to burn. All right, Brennan said. I'm in. Carter closed the tablet. Go pack light. Meet me at the airfield in 90 minutes. Where are you going? To make sure we don't get shot down on the way in. She left. Brennan stood alone in the briefing room, his heart pounding. 2 hours ago, he'd been overseeing a clean extraction. Now he was about to violate every regulation in the book to rescue an asset he'd never met. And the woman leading the charge was the same person he'd humiliated less than 24 hours ago. He almost laughed. Then he realized there was nothing funny about any of this. He left the room, headed back to his quarters, and started packing. 90 minutes later, he stood on the edge of the airfield, duffel bag over his shoulder, watching a C-130 taxi toward the runway. Carter appeared beside him. She'd changed into civilian clothes, jeans, a dark jacket, boots. A small pack slung over her shoulder. You ready? She asked. Brennan nodded. Ready. They climbed into the cargo bay. The crew didn't ask questions, didn't even look at them. The plane took off, engines roaring, lifting into the night sky. Brennan sat on the metal bench, felt the vibration of the aircraft through his bones. Carter sat across from him, eyes closed, breathing steady. Hey, Brennan said. She opened her eyes. Thank you, he said, for giving me a second chance. Carter looked at him. Don't thank me yet, Admiral. We might not survive the night. The plane banked east, heading into the darkness. And somewhere ahead, in a city full of enemies, a man who'd risked everything for them was waiting. If he was still alive. The C-130 touched down on a runway that barely deserved the name. Cracked asphalt, no lights, just darkness and the smell of diesel fuel. The cargo bay door dropped with a hydraulic hiss, and Brennan followed Carter down the ramp into air that was hot even at 3 in the morning. A man waited beside a mud-caked pickup truck, smoking a cigarette. He didn't salute, didn't speak, just nodded once at Carter and tossed her a set of keys. She caught them. Vehicles fueled? Full tank, weapons in the back. Clean? As clean as anything gets out here. Carter walked past him toward the truck. Brennan followed, thrown by how little was being said. No briefing, no coordination, just keys and a truck, and the assumption that everyone knew their role. The man watched Brennan. You know what he's doing? He will, Carter said. They climbed into his truck. Carter started the engine, pulled out onto a dirt road that disappeared into the desert. No headlights. She drove by memory and moonlight, the landscape a blur of sand and scrub. Brennan checked the cargo bed through the rear window. 2 rifles, both AKs, a pistol, extra magazines, a medical kit, everything stripped of identifying marks. Who was that? He asked. Someone who doesn't ask questions. You have a lot of people like that? Carter glanced at him. Enough. They drove in silence for 20 minutes. Then Carter slowed, turned onto a narrower track that looked like it hadn't been used in years. The truck bounced over ruts and rocks, suspension groaning. We're going in on foot from here, she said. The city's another 8 clicks. We move in before dawn, find Mansour, and we're out by sunrise. And if we run into Rashad's people, we avoid them. And if we can't? She didn't answer. Brennan shifted in his seat. You know this is insane, right? I know. We could die out here and nobody would even know why. Yeah. And you're okay with that? Carter stopped the truck, killed the engine. She turned to face him, and in the faint moonlight, her expression was unreadable. I've been doing this for 15 years, she said. Black Ops, unsanctioned missions, places that don't exist on any map. I've lost count of how many times I thought I wouldn't make it back. But I did. Every single time. You know why? Brennan shook his head. Because I don't take unnecessary risks. I plan, I adapt, and I never assume I'm smarter than the enemy. She paused. You want to survive tonight? Do exactly what I tell you. No improvising, no heroics. Understood? Understood. They got out, geared up in silence. Brennan slung one of the AKs over his shoulder, checked the magazine. Carter did the same, moving with the kind of efficiency that came from doing something 10,000 times. She pulled out a handheld GPS, checked their position, then started walking. Brennan followed. The desert gave way to low hills, then to the outskirts of the city. Half-finished buildings, abandoned construction sites, streets that looked like they'd been shelled a decade ago and never repaired. No lights, no movement, just the distant sound of a generator and the occasional bark of a dog. Carter moved like a shadow, each step deliberate, each pause calculated. Brennan tried to match her rhythm, tried to quiet his breathing, tried not to think about how exposed they were. They reached a residential block. Single-story houses, flat roofs, walls pockmarked with bullet holes. Carter stopped at a corner, motioned for Brennan to hold. She pulled out a phone, different from her usual one, older, scratched, and sent a message. 30 seconds later, a reply came back. She read it, swore under her breath. What? Brennan whispered. Mansour's not at his apartment. He's being held 3 blocks east, basement of a textile warehouse. How do you know? My contacts saw them move him 2 hours ago. How many guards? At least 6. Brennan's jaw tightened. We can't take 6 hostiles with 2 rifles and no backup. We're not taking them. We're bypassing them. How? Carter started moving again. There's a drainage tunnel that runs under the warehouse district. It connects to the basement through an old maintenance access. We go in through the tunnel, grab Mansour, and we're out before they know we're there. And if the tunnel's blocked, then we improvise. They moved through narrow alleys, staying off the main streets. Once a car passed, headlights sweeping across the walls, and they pressed flat against a doorway, barely breathing. The car kept going. 10 minutes later, they reached a storm drain entrance half hidden behind a pile of rubble. Carter pulled the grate aside, revealing a dark shaft that dropped into nothing. Down, she said. Brennan climbed in first, feet finding rusted rungs welded to the concrete. The smell hit him halfway down, sewage and rot and stagnant water. He reached the bottom, boots splashing in something he didn't want to think about. Carter dropped beside him a moment later, pulled out a small flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing a tunnel that stretched in both directions. This way. They moved east, hunched over, the ceiling low enough that Brennan had to duck. Water dripped from cracks overhead. Something scurried in the shadows. After what felt like an eternity, Carter stopped. She pointed up. A metal hatch, rusted but intact. That's the access point, she whispered. Leads directly into the warehouse basement. Brennan looked at it. You've done this before? Not here, but the principle's the same. She climbed the rungs welded to the wall, reached the hatch, and listened. 10 seconds. 20. Then she slowly turned the wheel, easing it open inch by inch. No sound from above. She pushed the hatch up, peered through, then climbed out. Brennan followed. They were in a storage room, concrete floor, metal shelves lined with old machinery parts. A single bare bulb hung from the ceiling, casting weak yellow light. The air smelled like oil and dust. Carter moved to the door, cracked it open. Voices drifted down from somewhere above. Men talking, arguing about something. She closed the door. Mansour's upstairs. 2nd floor, according to the intel. We need to move fast. What about the guards? They're concentrated on the ground level and the entrance. If we stay quiet, we can reach the stairs without being seen. Brennan nodded. His heart was hammering now, adrenaline sharpening everything. He checked his rifle, made sure the safety was off. They slipped into the hallway. Dim light from overhead fixtures, concrete walls. The sound of voices louder now, coming from the front of the building. Carter led them to a stairwell, started climbing, each step careful, each breath controlled. At the 2nd floor landing, she stopped, listened. Footsteps. Close. She pulled Brennan back into the stairwell, pressed against the wall. A man appeared in the hallway, one of Rashad's people, rifle slung over his shoulder, cigarette dangling from his lips. He walked past the stairwell without looking, disappeared around a corner. Carter waited, counted to 10, then moved. The second floor was a series of small offices and storage rooms. Most of the doors were open, revealing empty spaces, but one at the end of the hall was closed. Light seeped through the gap at the bottom. Carter approached it, motioned for Brennan to cover the hallway. She tested the handle. Locked. She pulled out a small toolkit, worked the lock with practiced hands. 30 seconds later, it clicked. The door swung open. Inside, slumped in a chair with his hands zip-tied behind his back, was Dr. Tariq Mansour. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut, blood on his shirt. But he was breathing. Carter crossed the room, knelt beside him. Tariq. He looked up, recognition flickering through the pain. Evelyn? Yeah, it's me. You shouldn't be here. Too late for that. She pulled out a knife, cut the zip ties. Can you walk? I think so. Brennan kept his eyes on the hallway. We need to move, now. Carter helped Mansour to his feet. He swayed, grabbed the edge of the chair for balance. What happened? Carter asked. They knew. Mansour's voice was hoarse. About the extraction, about Rashad. They were waiting. Carter's expression darkened. Who told them? I don't know, but someone high up. Someone with access. Brennan's blood ran cold. A leak. Not just a lucky guess. Someone on the inside had sold them out. We'll figure it out later, Carter said. Right now, we get you out. They moved back into the hallway. Brennan took point, rifle up. They reached the stairwell, started descending. And that's when the lights went out. Total darkness. Not just dim. Black. Brennan froze. Heard Carter's voice, barely a whisper. Don't move. Then the sound of boots. Multiple sets coming from below. Someone knew they were here. Carter's hand found Brennan's shoulder, guided him back up the stairs. They retreated to the second floor, pulling Mansour with them. The tunnel, Brennan whispered. Blocked by now. They'll have it covered. Then how do we get out? Carter didn't answer. She was thinking, calculating. Brennan could almost hear the gears turning. The boots were closer now, voices shouting in Arabic, orders being given. Carter pulled them into one of the offices, closed the door. She moved to the window, looked out. 3-story drop to an alley below. No fire escape, no easy exit. We're trapped, Brennan said. Not yet. She pulled out her phone, sent a message. Waited. A reply came back. Help's coming, she said. We just need to hold for 10 minutes. 10 minutes against how many? Doesn't matter. We hold. Mansour slumped against the wall. Leave me. You can move faster without... Shut up, Carter said. Not cruel, just final. We're not leaving you. The door to the office rattled. Someone testing the handle. Brennan raised his rifle. Carter moved to the side of the door, knife in one hand, pistol in the other. The door burst open. 2 men rushed in. Brennan fired. 3 shots, center mass, both dropped. More shouting from the hallway. Footsteps running. Carter slammed the door shut, shoved a metal desk in front of it. That won't hold long. Gunfire erupted from the hallway, rounds punching through the thin walls, splintering wood, shattering what was left of the window. Brennan and Carter hit the floor, dragging Mansour down with them. We need another option, Brennan said. Carter looked at the ceiling. Up. What? She pointed. A maintenance hatch barely visible in the corner. They dragged the desk over, climbed up. Carter pushed the hatch open, pulled herself through. Brennan helped Mansour up, then followed. They were on the roof now, flat, tar paper, vents and old satellite dishes. The city spread out around them, dark and hostile. Below the sound of men flooding into the office they'd just left. Carter ran to the edge, looked down, then across at the next building, 10 feet, maybe 12. You've got to be kidding, Brennan said. It's that or we fight our way through 20 armed men. Mansour looked at the gap. I can't make that. Then we carry you. Before anyone could argue, headlights appeared in the street below. A truck skidded to a stop, and two men jumped out, heavily armed, moving with purpose. Carter's phone buzzed. She checked it. "That's our ride. We jump. They extract us. 3 seconds." But Brennan stared at the gap, at the drop, at the certain death waiting if they stayed. "Together," Carter said. "On 3. She grabbed Mansour's arm. Brennan grabbed the other. 1. Gunfire from below, the roof access door splintering. 2. Men pouring onto the roof, rifles raised. 3. They ran, hit the edge, jumped. For a moment, Brennan felt weightless, saw the alley below, saw the edge of the other building rushing toward them. They hit hard. Mansour cried out. Brennan's shoulders screamed, but they were across. Carter was already moving, pulling them toward the fire escape. They clambered down, boots clanging on metal, dropping the last 10 feet into the alley. The truck roared up, doors flung open. "Move!" someone shouted. They piled in. The truck peeled out, tires smoking. Gunfire chased them, rounds sparking off the tailgate, shattering the rear window. Then they were around a corner, racing through narrow streets, leaving the warehouse behind. Brennan sat in the truck bed, gasping, his whole body shaking from adrenaline. Carter checked Mansour's injuries, her hands steady despite everything. "You're okay," she told him. "You're going to be okay." Mansour closed his eyes. "Thank you." The truck drove for 20 minutes, then stopped at an abandoned airstrip. A small plane waited, engine already running. They transferred Mansour onto the plane. Carter spoke briefly with the pilot, then climbed in. Brennan followed. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe. Then we figure out who the hell sold us out." The plane took off, climbing into the pre-dawn sky. Brennan watched the city disappear below, the warehouse district a dark smudge in the distance. They'd done it. Against every odd. They'd pulled Mansour out alive. But Carter's expression was grim, and Brennan knew why. Someone had betrayed them. Someone with access to classified operations. Someone close enough to know the details of the Rashad extraction. And until they found out who, nobody was safe. The plane leveled off. Mansour was asleep or unconscious. Carter sat across from Brennan, staring at nothing. "You think it's someone at Thornhill?" he asked. "Has to be. The leak happened after the briefing. Only 9 people were in that room." Brennan's stomach turned. "One of them is a traitor." "Yeah. What do we do?" Carter's jaw set. "We find them, and we end this." Buzzit. They landed at a private airfield 2 hours later, somewhere in Turkey, Brennan guessed, though nobody confirmed it. Mansour was taken to a medical facility. Carter and Brennan were driven to a safe house on the outskirts of a city Brennan didn't recognize. Inside, Carter immediately set up her laptop, pulling files, cross-referencing communications logs. Brennan watched her work. "You really think you can find them?" "I know I can. It's just a matter of time." "We don't have time. Whoever it is, they know we're onto them. They'll cover their tracks." "They're already covering, but people make mistakes." She pulled up the comms log from the briefing. 9 people. 9 potential suspects. Brennan studied the list. Hale, Ortega, the 2 Pentagon staffers, the Navy captain, the intelligence analyst, the 2 suits he didn't recognize, and himself. "It's not me," he said. Carter glanced up. "I know." "How?" "Because you're too obvious. If you were the leak, you wouldn't have volunteered to go on a suicide mission to save Mansour." "Fair point." "What about Hale?" Brennan asked. Carter shook her head. "Hale's clean. I've worked with him for years. He's a bureaucrat, but he's loyal." "Ortega?" "Possible, but unlikely. She's Navy through and through." They went through the list, eliminating, narrowing until only 3 names remained. The 2 Pentagon staffers, and the Navy captain Brennan hadn't recognized. "Who is he?" Brennan asked, pointing to the captain's file. Carter pulled up his record. Captain Neil Voss. 20 years in naval intelligence, spotless record, multiple commendations. "He's been on the Joint Chiefs staff for the past 5 years, Carter said. "Access to everything. That's motive. Maybe, but we need proof." Carter opened another file, financial records. She scanned through them, eyes narrowing. "There," she said. Brennan leaned closer. A series of wire transfers, small amounts, spread out over 6 months, all going to an offshore account. Could be legitimate, Brennan said. Could be. Or could be payments. Carter pulled up another screen. Travel records. Voss had taken 3 trips to Dubai in the past year. Each time he'd stayed an extra 2 days beyond his official itinerary. He was meeting someone, Carter said. Can you prove it? She didn't answer, just kept digging. Phone records, email metadata, GPS data from his official phone. And then she found it. A single encrypted message, sent the morning of the briefing, before the operation launched. Carter decrypted it, read it, then turned the screen toward Brennan. Package location confirmed. Proceed as discussed. Brennan felt his blood turn to ice. He told them where we'd be. He told them everything. Why? Carter pulled up another file. A banking record. A payment to Voss's offshore account. $1 million. Transferred 3 hours after Rashad was killed. Blood money, Brennan said. Yeah. They sat in silence, the weight of it pressing down. One of their own, a decorated officer, a man trusted with national security, had sold out an entire team for money. We need to tell Hale, Brennan said. Carter closed the laptop. We will. But first, we need to make sure Voss doesn't run. How? She pulled out her phone, made a call, spoke quietly, then hung up. He's being detained as we speak. Hale will handle the interrogation. Brennan exhaled. It's over. Not yet. What do you mean? Carter stood, walked to the window. Voss had help. Someone on Rashad's side, someone coordinating the payments. We need to find out who. Does it matter? Rashad's dead. Rashad had partners, a network. If we don't dismantle it, this happens again. Brennan rubbed his face. We just barely survived the last 48 hours. You want to go after an entire network? I want to finish what we started. Before Brennan could respond, Carter's phone buzzed. She read the message. Her expression shifted. What? Brennan asked. Voss is talking. He's giving up names. Locations. The whole network. That was fast. He's trying to cut a deal. Will they give him one? Carter's smile was cold. Not a chance. 72 hours later, Brennan stood in a conference room at Thornhill, watching through one-way glass as Captain Neil Voss sat across from Deputy Director Hale and 2 federal prosecutors. Voss looked smaller than he had at the briefing, diminished. The uniform he'd worn with pride was gone, replaced by a gray jumpsuit. His hands were cuffed. Hale's voice came through the speaker. You understand the charges against you, Captain? Voss nodded. I do. Treason, conspiracy, accessory to the murder of a high-value intelligence asset. You're looking at life in a federal prison. No parole. Voss said nothing. Unless you cooperate, one of the prosecutors said. Give us the network, every name, every connection. Maybe we can talk about reducing the sentence. Voss looked up. I want full immunity. Hale laughed. You sold out your country for $1 million. You're not getting immunity. Then I'm not talking. The prosecutors exchanged glances. Hale leaned back, studying Voss. You think you have leverage here? Hale asked. You think we need you? You need the network. Without me, you'll never find them. Hale smiled. We already found them. Voss blinked. What? Dr. Carter identified 15 members of Rashad's network. 7 have been detained. The rest are being tracked. We don't need you, Captain. We just wanted to give you a chance to do the right thing. The color drained from Voss's face. Take him back to his cell. Hale said. Guards entered, pulled Voss to his feet. As they let him out, he looked at the one-way glass, like he knew someone was watching. Brennan turned away. Carter stood beside him. Feel good? Not really. It shouldn't. People died because of him. I know. They left the observation room, walked down the corridor. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. What happens to Mansour, Brennan asked. He's being relocated. New identity. New life. He earned it. And us? Carter stopped. You're being reinstated. Full rank, full duties. Hale's recommending a commendation for your actions during the extraction. Brennan frowned. I almost got everyone killed. You also saved 4 lives and helped expose a traitor. That counts. What about you? Carter shrugged. I go back to work? Same as always? Just like that? Just like that. Brennan studied her. This woman who'd been dismissed as a nurse, who'd saved his career, who'd risked everything to keep a promise. I never asked, he said, why you stayed. After everything you've done, you could have retired, taken a desk job. But you're still out there. Carter looked out at the sunset. Because someone has to be. That's not an answer. She smiled faintly. It's the only one I have. They stood in silence for a moment, then Carter turned to leave. Carter, Brennan said. She stopped. I'm sorry. For what I did. For how I treated you. I was wrong. She looked back at him. I know. Is that it? Just I know? What do you want me to say, Admiral? That I forgive you? That we're friends now? Brennan hesitated. I guess I want to know if you think I've changed. Carter considered him. You're learning. That's enough. She walked away. Brennan stood alone in the corridor watching her go. He'd come to Thornhill 3 days ago, certain of his place in the world, certain of his authority, his judgment, and in less than 72 hours, a woman he'd dismissed as nobody had torn that certainty apart and rebuilt it into something better. He still had so much to learn, but for the first time in his career, he was ready to listen. Brennan started walking, back to his quarters, back to the life that was waiting, but as he turned the corner, he saw something that stopped him cold. A man in a suit, standing at the end of the hallway, watching him, not threatening, just observing. The man nodded once, then disappeared around the corner. Brennan's instincts flared. Something was wrong. He pulled out his phone, called Carter. She answered on the first ring. What? Did you see a man in a suit, gray, mid-50s, standing near the east corridor? A pause. No, why? He was watching me. Watching you how? I don't know, it felt deliberate. Another pause, then Carter's voice, sharp. Stay where you are. Don't move. She hung up. Brennan stood frozen, heart pounding. 2 minutes later, Carter appeared, moving fast. Where did you see him? Brennan pointed. He went that way. They ran, turned the corner. The hallway was empty. Carter pulled out her phone, made a call. Security, I need surveillance footage from corridor E7, last 5 minutes. She waited, listened. Her expression darkened. Understood. She hung up, looked at Brennan. There's no one on the footage. No one entered or left that corridor. Brennan's blood ran cold. That's impossible. I saw him. I believe you, but whoever he was, he knows how to move without being seen. Carter, what the hell is going on? She didn't answer, just stared down the empty hallway, jaw tight, and Brennan realized with a sinking certainty that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Carter moved fast, pulling Brennan away from the corridor. Conference room, now! They cut through 2 hallways, entered a small briefing space, and Carter locked the door behind them. She pulled out her phone, fingers moving across the screen with precision. Who was he? Brennan asked. I don't know. But someone who can bypass Thornhill's security systems isn't some random operative. She pulled up the surveillance grid, scrolling through camera feeds. He's either agency, one of ours, or something worse. Worse how? Carter didn't answer. She was reviewing footage from every angle, rewinding, cross-checking timestamps. Nothing. Just Brennan standing alone in an empty hallway. This doesn't make sense, she muttered. Our cameras cover every inch of this facility. Nobody moves through here invisible unless... She stopped, stared at the screen. Unless what? Brennan pressed. Carter's expression went cold. Unless they have access to the security protocols. Someone on the inside gave him the blind spots. You think Voss had a partner? I think Voss was just the beginning. Before Brennan could respond, the door rattled. Someone trying the handle. Carter's hand went to her sidearm. "Who is it?" "Captain Ortega." "Open up." Carter unlocked the door. Ortega stepped inside, her face tight with urgency. "We have a problem," Ortega said. "Voss is dead." The room went silent. "How?" Carter asked. "Found hanging in his cell 20 minutes ago. Guard said he checked on him at 1900. Everything was fine. Came back at 1930. Voss was gone." Brennan felt the floor shift under him. "That's not suicide." "No," Ortega agreed. "It's not." Carter's jaw clenched. Who had access to that cell block? 3 guards, rotating shifts. All of them are being questioned now. "It won't matter," Carter said. "Whoever did this knew exactly when to move. They had the schedule, the blind spots, everything." Ortega crossed her arms. "You're saying we have another leak. I'm saying we never caught the real one." Brennan's mind raced. Voss was the distraction. Someone higher up wanted us focused on him while they covered their tracks. Carter nodded slowly. "And now Voss can't talk. Can't tell us who he was really working for." "So we're back to square one," Ortega said. "No." Carter pulled up her laptop, started typing. Voss left a trail, financial records, communications. Someone paid him. Someone coordinated with him. We just need to dig deeper. She worked in silence, pulling files, cross-referencing data. Brennan watched over her shoulder, trying to follow the thread she was unraveling. Then Carter stopped, leaned closer to the screen. "What?" Brennan asked. She pointed to a transaction log. Voss received payments from the offshore account, but the account itself received funds from somewhere else, a shell company in the Caymans. "Can you trace it?" "Already am." Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Layers of corporations, dummy accounts, false names, each one leading to the next. Until finally, at the end of the chain, a single name appeared. Carter stared at it. Then she stood up so fast her chair fell backward. "No," she whispered. Ortega stepped closer. "Who is it?" Carter turned the screen toward them. The name on the file, Deputy Director Marcus Hale. Brennan felt like he'd been punched in the chest. "That's impossible." "The money trail doesn't lie," Carter said, her voice hollow. "Every payment to Voss originated from accounts controlled by Hale. He's been funding this operation for months." Ortega shook her head. "Hale's been with the DIA for 20 years. He's overseen dozens of operations. He's clean." "He was clean," Carter corrected, "until he wasn't." Brennan tried to process it. Hale, the man who'd authorized the Rashad extraction, who'd brought Carter into the briefing, who'd interrogated Voss and acted disgusted by the betrayal. All of it a performance. "He played us," Brennan said quietly, "from the beginning." Carter's hands were shaking, subtle but visible. Voss was the fall guy. Hale set him up to take the blame while he walked away clean. "Then why kill Voss?" Ortega asked, "if he was already taking the fall?" "Because Voss knew too much," Carter said, "and Hale couldn't risk him cutting a deal." Brennan's mind snapped into focus. "If Hale knows we're on to him, he'll run," Carter finished. "We need to move. Now." They left the conference room at a sprint. Ortega radioed security while Carter pulled up Hale's location on her phone. He was still in the building. 3rd floor. His office. They took the stairs 3 at a time, boots echoing in the stairwell. Brennan's pulse hammered. This was it. The final piece. The real enemy. They burst onto the 3rd floor. Hale's office was at the end of the corridor, door closed. Carter drew her weapon. Ortega did the same. Brennan followed suit. They approached the door. Carter tested the handle. Unlocked. She pushed it open. The office was empty, papers scattered across the desk. A laptop open, screen dark, a coffee cup still warm. "He was just here," Ortega said. Carter moved to the laptop, woke it up. The screen displayed a single open document, a flight manifest. Private jet, scheduled to leave from a regional airfield in 40 minutes. "He's running," Brennan said. Carter grabbed her phone, dialed. "This is Dr. Carter. I need an immediate lockdown of Thornhill. Nobody in or out. Authorization code Delta 79er. She listened. Her face went pale. What do you mean it's already been overridden? She paused. By who? Another pause, then she hung up. Hale used his credentials to lift the lockdown 5 minutes ago. He walked right out the front gate. Ortega swore. Where's the airfield? Carter pulled up a map. 20 minutes northeast. If he's already moving, we won't catch him on the ground. Then we stop him in the air, Brennan said. Carter looked at him. How? You said closest strike asset was 70 minutes out during the extraction. Where's it now? Understanding dawned in Carter's eyes. She made another call. This is Dr. Carter. I need immediate air support. Target is a private jet scheduled to depart from Riverside Regional Airfield in 35 minutes. Authorization. She stopped, listened. Then her expression shifted. Understood. Thank you. She hung up, looked at Brennan and Ortega. Strike asset is 20 minutes out, but command won't authorize an attack on a civilian aircraft without presidential approval. That'll take hours. Then we don't wait for approval, Brennan said. We go ourselves. Ortega blinked. Go where? The airfield. We intercept Hale before he takes off. With what? 3 sidearms against however many men he's got protecting him? Brennan turned to Carter. You've done this before. Unsanctioned. Off the books. What do you need? Carter studied him. Something passed between them. Recognition, respect, trust. Transportation, weapons, and 10 minutes. Ortega shook her head. This is insane. You have a better idea? Carter asked. Silence. Then let's move. Set. They requisitioned a vehicle from the motor pool. Unmarked SUV, fast engine. Carter grabbed weapons from the armory. 2 rifles, extra ammunition, flashbangs. Brennan drove while Carter coordinated on her phone, pulling in favors, calling in debts. The drive took 18 minutes. Brennan pushed the SUV hard, weaving through evening traffic, ignoring speed limits. Beside him, Carter was silent, her focus absolute. In the back seat, Ortega checked her weapon for the 3rd time. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. Long shadows stretched across the road. Brennan's hands were tight on the wheel, knuckles white. You sure about this? Ortega asked from the back. No, Carter said, but we're doing it anyway. The airfield appeared on the horizon, small, private, a single runway and a handful of hangars. In the fading light, Brennan could see a jet on the tarmac, engines already spooling up. White fuselage, no markings, the kind of aircraft people used when they didn't want questions asked. That's him, Carter said. Brennan floored it. The SUV roared across the access road, tires screaming as they approached the gate. 2 guards stepped out of the security booth, hands raised in a stop gesture. Brennan didn't slow down. He aimed for the chain-link gate and hit it at 60 miles an hour. The gate exploded inward, metal screeching, posts tearing from concrete. The guards dove out of the way. They skidded onto the tarmac. The jet was 50 yards away, stairs still extended, ground crew scattered. And standing at the base of those stairs, a briefcase in one hand, was Marcus Hale. He saw them. Didn't run. Didn't even flinch. Just stood there, watching with an expression that was almost amused. Brennan slammed the brakes. They piled out, weapons raised. Hale! Carter shouted. It's over! Hale smiled, actually smiled. Is it? 3 men appeared from behind the jet, armed, professional, moving to flank. Private security. The kind that didn't ask questions and didn't care about legality as long as the checks cleared. Brennan counted. 3 of them. 3 of us. Even odds if nobody made a mistake. You can't win this, Hale called out. Walk away, Dr. Carter. You've had a good run. You sold out your country, Carter said, her voice carrying across the tarmac. For what? Money? For survival. Hale's voice was calm, reasonable, like they were having a philosophical debate over drinks. You think this system we serve cares about us? We're tools, disposable. The moment we stop being useful, they discard us. I just decided to get paid before they threw me away. You got 4 operators killed. Collateral damage. Unfortunate, but it happens in our line of work. Carter's hand tightened on her rifle. Brennan could see the fury in her eyes. The restraint it was taking not to pull the trigger right there and solve this the simple way. "You killed Voss," she said. "Voss was weak. He would have talked eventually, made a deal, dragged me down with him." Hale shrugged, the gesture almost casual. "I couldn't allow that." "He already did talk." Hale's smile faded slightly. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Carter pulled out her phone with her free hand, held it up. "We have everything. The money trail, the communications, the shell companies. Every transaction, every meeting, every payment you made to enemy intelligence services. It all leads back to you." For the first time, genuine doubt flickered across Hale's face. "You can get on that jet," Carter continued. "Fly to whatever country doesn't have an extradition treaty. Venezuela, Belarus, somewhere the U.S. can't touch you. Spend the rest of your life in some compound, always looking over your shoulder, always wondering when we'll find you. Because we will find you, Marcus. You know we will." Or, Brennan added, "You surrender now. Face trial. There might be a deal to be made if you cooperate." Hale laughed, but it sounded forced, brittle. "A deal? I'm a deputy director of the DIA. You think they'll let me testify in open court? They'll bury me in a black site so deep nobody will ever find me. I'd rather take my chances running." "Then you've got nothing to lose by fighting," one of Hale's security men said, his rifle coming up slightly. The tension on the tarmac ratcheted up another notch. Brennan's finger hovered over the trigger. This was it. The moment where everything either ended clean or turned into a bloodbath on an airfield where civilians could catch stray rounds. Carter took a step forward, lowering her rifle slightly in a gesture of non-aggression. "Your men don't know what you've done. They think they're protecting someone important, someone worth dying for." She raised her voice, addressing Hale's security team directly. "He's a traitor. He sold out American operatives, got them killed for money, took payments from enemy intelligence services. You want to die protecting that? You want to spend the rest of your lives in federal prison as accessories to treason?" One of the security men hesitated, glanced at Hale, then back at Carter. "She's lying," Hale said quickly. "She's a compromised asset. That's why I'm leaving, to protect classified information from falling into enemy hands." "That's not what the evidence says," Ortega called out. She held up her phone, the screen glowing in the gathering dusk. "I just received confirmation from Department of Defense. Arrest warrant issued for Marcus Hale. Charges include treason, conspiracy to commit murder, espionage, and obstruction of justice." The security men looked at each other. The calculation was visible on their faces. They were contractors. They got paid to protect clients, ask no questions, and go home at the end of the day. But protecting a traitor, being accessories to treason, that was a different story. That was life in prison. One by one, they lowered their weapons. Hale's face went pale. "What are you doing? I'm paying you." "Not enough to commit treason ourselves," the lead security man said. He set his rifle on the ground carefully. "We're out. This is above our pay grade." The other two followed suit, placing their weapons on the tarmac and stepping back with their hands visible. Hale stood alone at the base of the jet's stairs. For a moment, Brennan thought he might run. Bolt up the stairs, order the pilot to take off, force them into a standoff where someone would have to make a terrible decision. But Hale just stood there, briefcase in hand, shoulders sagging. The fight drained out of him all at once. "How did you figure it out?" he asked quietly. Carter approached slowly, weapon still raised but pointed down. "You were too clean, too eager to blame Voss. When someone's that quick to point fingers, it usually means they're hiding something bigger. I taught you better than that." "You taught me everything," Carter said, stopping 10 feet away, "including how to recognize when someone's lying to me. You taught me to look for inconsistencies, to trust my instincts when something feels wrong. And you felt wrong from the moment you walked into that briefing room." "When?" "When you brought me in. You never bring me in unless it's something you can't handle yourself." That made me suspicious. So I started watching you, the way you positioned Voss, the way you controlled the narrative. It was too perfect. Hale shook his head slowly. "I underestimated you." "Everyone does," Carter said. "That's how I stay alive." The sound of rotors cut through the air. growing louder by the second. Everyone looked up. A helicopter appeared over the tree line. Military. Black Hawk. Fast. The side door was open, and Brennan could see armed operators inside, ready to deploy. It circled once, then descended, landing on the far side of the tarmac with precision. The moment the skids touched down, operators poured out, 8 of them, full tactical gear, moving with the disciplined coordination of a well-trained unit. Leading them was a man in a Navy captain's uniform. Not Voss. Someone Brennan didn't recognize. The man had silver hair, sharp eyes, and the bearing of someone who'd spent decades making hard decisions and living with the consequences. The captain approached, his team fanning out to secure the area, covering angles, controlling the space. Deputy Director Hale, I'm Captain Richard Tanner, Naval Criminal Investigative Service. You're under arrest for treason, conspiracy to commit murder, violations of the Espionage Act, and accessory to the deaths of American service members. Hale's briefcase slipped from his hand, hit the tarmac with a dull thud. Papers spilled out, passports, documents, something that looked like bearer bonds. How? Hale whispered, looking at Carter with something like betrayal in his eyes. Carter lowered her weapon completely. You taught me everything I know about running Black Ops, including how to call in backup without anyone knowing. I contacted NCIS 90 minutes ago. They've been tracking this jet since it filed its flight plan. I just had to keep you talking long enough for them to get here. One of Tanner's operators moved in with zip ties, securing Hale's hands behind his back with practiced efficiency. Another picked up the briefcase, began cataloging its contents. Evidence of flight risk, Tanner said, watching. Multiple passports, cash in 3 different currencies. That'll play very well at trial. Hale looked at Carter. Really looked at her, and Brennan saw something complicated pass between them. History. Betrayal. The death of whatever relationship they'd once had. I made you, Hale said quietly. Everything you are, I created. Without me, you'd still be running ops in the Middle East, going nowhere. No, Carter said, her voice steady and final. You gave me training. You gave me skills and opportunities. But what I became, the choices I made, the person I am, that was my decision. Not yours. You don't own that. You're making a mistake. You think you're on the right side, but there is no right side in this world, just people trying to survive. And one day you'll realize that. I'm surviving just fine without selling out my country. Hale laughed bitterly. We'll see how long that lasts. Tanner's team led Hale toward the helicopter. As he passed Brennan, Hale stopped, held in place by the operators gripping his arms. You have no idea what you've stepped into, Admiral, Hale said, his voice low and intense. This goes deeper than me. There are others, people you trust, people in positions you can't even imagine. And when you figure out who they are, you'll wish you'd let me go. Then I guess we'll keep digging, Brennan replied evenly, however long it takes. Hale was hauled into the helicopter. The door slid shut. The rotor spun up, and within moments it lifted off, banking east toward wherever they were taking him. Probably a military detention facility, somewhere with no windows and walls thick enough to muffle anything that happened inside. Carter lowered her rifle completely, exhaled hard, the breath shaking just slightly. Her hands were steady, but Brennan saw the tension in her shoulders, the weight settling onto her like a physical thing. Brennan walked over to her. You okay? She didn't answer right away, just stared at the horizon where the helicopter had vanished, now just a dark speck against the purple sky. He was my mentor, she said quietly. 15 years ago, he recruited me out of field operations. I was good at tactics, but terrible at politics. He taught me how to navigate this world, how to survive when everyone else wanted me to fail because I didn't fit their expectations. I'm sorry. Don't be. He made his choice. I made mine. She turned to face Brennan. That's all any of us can do. Make our choices and live with them. Ortega approached, holstering her weapon with a sigh of relief. Command wants a full debrief. Tomorrow morning, 0600. Carter nodded. We'll be there. Tanner walked over, his team securing the jet and collecting the abandoned security weapons as evidence. Dr. Carter, outstanding work. We've been trying to build a case against Hale for 3 months. Never had enough evidence to move. Too well protected. Too many layers. You do now, Carter said. Thanks to you. Tanner glanced at Brennan. And you, Admiral. I heard about the cafeteria incident. The whole facility's been talking about it. Brennan felt heat rise in his face. That's already forgotten, Tanner said firmly. What matters is what you did after. You helped expose a traitor at the highest levels. That takes guts and integrity. He extended his hand. Brennan shook it, surprised by the firm grip and the respect in the man's eyes. We'll take it from here, Tanner said. You three should get back to base. It's been a long day, and tomorrow's going to be longer. They walked back to the SUV. The adrenaline was wearing off now, leaving Brennan feeling hollow and exhausted. His hands were shaking slightly as he slid into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel but not starting the engine right away. Carter got in the passenger side, moving slowly like every muscle hurt. Ortega climbed in back and immediately leaned her head against the window. Nobody spoke for a long moment. Then Ortega broke the silence. We just arrested a deputy director of the DIA. Yeah, Carter said. That's going to have consequences. Political ones, career ones. People are going to ask questions about how we knew, why we moved without authorization. Probably. You worried? Carter looked out the window at the darkening sky. Stars were starting to appear. No, I did the right thing. That's all that matters. Brennan started the engine. They drove back toward Thornhill, the road empty and quiet. In the rearview mirror, the airfield disappeared behind them, just another place where lives had changed in the span of minutes. When they reached Thornhill, the facility looked the same as when they'd left, clean, orderly, secure. Guards at the gates, lights in windows, everything in its place. But Brennan knew better now, knew how fragile that security was, how easily it could be shattered by someone on the inside, how trust was the most valuable and most dangerous thing in this world. They parked, got out, stood in the lot under the harsh floodlights that made everything look washed out and cold. Thank you, Brennan said to Carter. She raised an eyebrow. For what? For not giving up on me. After what I did in the cafeteria. You could have destroyed me, should have destroyed me, but you didn't. I didn't do it for you. I did it because it was the right tactical decision. The mission needed someone with your skills. Still, you gave me a chance when I didn't deserve one. Carter turned to face him fully. Her gray eyes were tired but clear. You want to thank me? Then learn from this. Really learn. Not just the tactics or the protocols or how to run an operation. Learn what it means to look at someone, anyone, and see them as a person first. Not their rank, not their uniform, not their gender or their appearance or what they can do for you. Just see them as a human being with value. Brennan nodded slowly. I'm trying. I know. That's why you're still here. She glanced at Ortega. Both of you did good work tonight. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. She walked toward the main building, her stride purposeful despite the exhaustion Brennan knew she had to be feeling. Ortega watched her go. She's something else. Yeah, Brennan agreed. She really is. They stood there a moment longer, then Ortega headed off toward her quarters. Brennan remained looking up at the building, at the lights and windows where people were still working, still protecting, still serving. He'd been so certain when he arrived here, so sure of his place in the world, his authority, his judgment. Now he wasn't certain of anything except that he had a lot to learn, and for the first time in his career, he was genuinely ready to listen. 3 days later, Brennan stood in a packed auditorium at Thornhill. Every seat filled. Officers in dress uniforms, analysts in business attire, medical staff, security personnel, people he recognized and dozens he didn't. The room buzzed with conversation until a senior admiral, 3 stars, weathered face, the kind of officer who'd earned every line and gray hair, stepped to the podium. The room fell silent instantly. We're here today, the admiral began, his voice carrying authority earned over decades, to address the events of the past week and to recognize individuals who demonstrated exceptional courage and integrity in the face of betrayal. Brennan sat in the front row, uncomfortable in his dress uniform. The fabric felt too tight, the decorations too heavy. Beside him, Carter looked equally out of place in a formal Navy uniform he'd never seen her wear, ribbons and medals covering her chest in neat rows. She told him earlier that she hated these ceremonies, hated being the center of attention, but protocol demanded it, so here they were. The betrayal we uncovered, the Admiral continued, goes to the heart of why we serve. Deputy Director Hale violated every oath he ever took. He betrayed his colleagues, his country, and most painfully, the people who trusted him most. A murmur went through the room, shock, anger. The story had been kept quiet, but rumors had spread. Now they were getting confirmation. But this story isn't about betrayal, the Admiral said. It's about the people who refused to look away, who asked hard questions when it would have been easier to accept easy answers, who risked everything to uncover the truth. He gestured to Carter. Dr. Evelyn Carter, please stand. Carter stood slowly, spine straight, hands at her sides. The room erupted in applause, genuine, sustained, the kind that made Brennan's chest tight with emotion he hadn't expected to feel. Dr. Carter's career is largely classified, the Admiral said. Most of you don't know what she's done, where she's been, the operations she's led, or the lives she's saved, and you probably never will. The nature of her work demands that secrecy. But I can tell you this, she's one of the finest intelligence officers this country has ever produced. More applause. Carter stood perfectly still, accepting it with the same calm composure she brought to everything else. But Brennan noticed the faint color in her cheeks. She cared about this recognition, even if she'd never admit it. For exceptional actions during a classified extraction operation, the Admiral continued, for leadership under fire, for tactical brilliance that saved the lives of 4 American service members, and for her instrumental role in exposing a high-level security threat, Dr. Evelyn Carter is hereby awarded the Defense Superior Service Medal. An aide brought forward a display case containing the medal, silver and blue, catching the light. The Admiral pinned it to Carter's uniform himself, his weathered hand steady and sure. She saluted. He returned it with visible respect. Admiral Jacob Brennan, the Admiral said. Brennan stood, his heart hammering against his ribs. Admiral Brennan's journey this week was different, but no less important, the Admiral said, and Brennan felt every eye in the room shift to him. He made mistakes, serious ones. He owns them. But when faced with a choice between protecting his career and doing what was right, he chose right, every single time. Brennan felt dozens of eyes on him, some judgmental, some curious, some openly respectful. For tactical leadership during a high-risk operation, the Admiral continued, for assisting in the identification and apprehension of a high-level traitor, and for demonstrating the kind of personal growth and integrity we expect from our leaders, Admiral Brennan is hereby commended and reinstated to full duty with a letter of distinction. Applause again. Less enthusiastic than for Carter, Brennan understood that, accepted it, but real and sincere. He accepted the letter from the Admiral, shook his hand. Learn from this, Admiral, the Admiral said quietly, for Brennan's ears only, and make damn sure you teach it to the next generation. Yes, sir, I will. The ceremony continued, other commendations, other recognitions for people who'd played smaller roles in the investigation. But Brennan barely heard them. He was too busy processing what had just happened. A week ago, he'd been on the verge of losing everything, his career, his reputation, his sense of who he was. Now he was being honored. It didn't feel real. When it ended, people dispersed slowly. Some came up to shake hands, offer congratulations. Others just nodded respectfully from a distance, giving him space. Brennan found Carter outside, standing near the same corridor where everything had started, where he'd knocked the tray from her hands and set all of this in motion. Hell of a week, he said, joining her. Yeah. They stood in silence for a moment, watching people move through the hallways, back to work, back to normal, or whatever normal meant in a place like this. I heard you're being reassigned, Carter said, not looking at him. Task Force in the Pacific, USS Gerald Ford. You heard right. Ship out in 2 weeks, Joint Operations Command. Good assignment, important work. You'll do well there. What about you? Back to the field. Already have 3 missions queued up. 1 in Somalia, 1 in Ukraine, 1 I can't talk about. Alone? Carter smiled faintly. Usually. Brennan turned to face her. Why do you do it? After everything. After Hale's betrayal. After all the close calls and the missions that go wrong and the people who don't make it home, why keep going back out there? She was quiet for a long moment, considering the question seriously. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. Because out there, in the places nobody wants to go, there are people who need help. People like Mansour who risk everything for us. Operators like Reese and his team, who go into harm's way trusting that someone has their back. And if I'm not there to pull them out when things go wrong, who will be? Someone else. There are plenty of capable people. Maybe. But I know how. I've done it. I've got the skills and the experience and the network of contacts that took years to build, and I can't just walk away from that knowledge. Not when it means someone dies because I chose comfort over duty. Brennan nodded slowly. You're a better person than I am. No, Carter said firmly. I'm just someone who learned a long time ago that rank and medals and fancy titles don't make you valuable. What you do for the people who can't fight for themselves, that's what matters. That's the only thing that actually matters in the end. She started to walk away. Carter, Brennan called. She stopped, looked back. If I ever need backup, someone I can trust completely, who'll tell me when I'm wrong and help me be better. Can I call you? She studied him for a moment, those gray eyes reading him the way they always did. Then she nodded. You know where to find me. She walked down the corridor and disappeared around a corner. Brennan stood there for a while longer, turning everything over in his mind. The man he'd been a week ago. The man he was now. The long road ahead. Changing wasn't something that happened in a week. It was something you worked at every single day, a choice you made again and again, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. But he was ready for that work now. Really ready. Oseb. 6 months later, Brennan sat in a briefing room on the USS Gerald Ford, a supercarrier operating in the South China Sea. Sunlight streamed through the portholes. Maps covered the walls. The room smelled like coffee and salt air. He was running a joint operation, SEALs, intelligence assets, local partners from 3 different countries. Coordination across multiple agencies and time zones. High stakes. Complex logistics. The kind of mission where one mistake could cascade into disaster. The kind of mission that required trust. One of the intelligence analysts was a young woman in her late 20s, civilian contractor, no military background. She sat quietly during briefings, taking detailed notes, rarely speaking unless asked a direct question. Brennan had been watching her for 3 days, watching the way she analyzed data, made connections others missed, asked quiet questions that revealed deep understanding. During a break, he approached her. You've been doing exceptional work on the signal intelligence analysis. She looked surprised, almost startled. Thank you, Admiral. What's your background? She hesitated, like she wasn't sure if he actually wanted to know or was just being polite. CIA, 3 years in the Middle East, field operations and language analysis. I left last year to work private sector. Any regional specialties? Farsi and Arabic. Cultural intelligence, understanding how local power structures work, who has real influence versus who just has titles. Brennan nodded thoughtfully. We're planning a meeting with a local contact next week, someone who might be able to help us track a high-value target. I'd like you to brief the team on cultural protocols, things we need to know before we sit down with him, red lines we shouldn't cross. Her eyes widened. Me? Sir, shouldn't that come from someone with more seniority? I'm just a contractor. You're the expert on the culture and the language. That makes you the most qualified person in this room, regardless of whether you're military or civilian. Expertise matters more than rank. She seemed to process this, searching his face for sarcasm or hidden meaning, finding none. I'd be honored, sir. Good. Briefing's at 0800 tomorrow. You'll have the floor. As she walked away, clearly energized by the recognition, one of the other officers, a lieutenant commander who'd been working with Brennan for years, approached. You're giving a lot of responsibility to contractors lately, he observed, not quite making it a question. I'm giving responsibility to people who've earned it, Brennan corrected. Rank is just a framework for organizing people. Competence is what keeps them alive. The lieutenant commander smiled slightly. "You've changed, sir, if you don't mind me saying." "I've learned," Brennan said. "There's a difference." The officer nodded and walked away. That night, alone in his quarters, Brennan opened his laptop and composed an email. It took him 20 minutes to get the wording right, deleting and rewriting until it said what he actually meant. "Dr. Carter, I wanted to update you on how things are going out here. The Pacific assignment is challenging but good. I'm working with an excellent team, and I'm trying every day to put into practice everything you taught me. I'm not perfect at it. I still make assumptions sometimes. Still have to catch myself before I judge someone based on appearances or rank. But I'm getting better at seeing people first and everything else second. There's a young analyst here who reminds me of you in some ways. Brilliant, observant, quiet. The kind of person most officers would overlook because she doesn't fit the traditional mold. I made sure she gets the recognition she's earned. Made sure her voice is heard. I don't know if you check this email regularly. You're probably somewhere without reliable internet, doing something I don't have clearance to know about. But I wanted you to know that what you did mattered. You changed how I see the world, how I lead, who I want to be. Thank you doesn't begin to cover it, but thank you anyway. JB. He sent it before he could second-guess himself. Closed the laptop. Stared out the porthole at the dark ocean stretching to the horizon. 2 days later, a reply came. Short, direct. Classic Carter. "Admiral, keep doing what you're doing. The world needs more leaders who ask questions before making judgments, who value competence over conformity. Stay safe out there." E.C. Brennan smiled, reading it twice before closing the message. Somewhere in a desert 5,000 miles away, Dr. Evelyn Carter sat in a safe house reviewing intelligence reports by the light of a single lamp. She'd just finished a 14-hour operation, extracting a local asset whose cover had been blown, moving them through 3 countries to safety. Clean exfil. No casualties. Another life saved. Her body ached in a dozen places. She wasn't 20 anymore, and the work was getting harder each year, but she was still here, still doing it. Her phone buzzed. Brennan's email. She read it twice, allowing herself a moment of quiet satisfaction, then typed her brief response. She set the phone down, looked at the map on the wall showing her next 3 missions. Afghanistan, Somalia, Ukraine, places where things were falling apart and someone needed to help put them back together. There would always be another mission, another crisis, another person who needed pulling out of the fire before it consumed them. She'd thought about quitting, lately, more than usual. Her body hurt in ways that reminded her she couldn't do this forever. She'd seen enough death to last several lifetimes, carried enough ghosts. But then she thought about people like Mansour, now safe with a new identity and a chance at a real life. Like Reese and his team, who'd made it home because someone had their back when things went wrong. Like the hundreds of others she'd pulled out over 15 years of doing this work, people who were alive because she'd been there. And she thought about Brennan, how he'd changed from someone who dismissed people based on appearance into someone who actively looked for hidden talent and made space for it to grow. Maybe that was the real victory. Not the missions or the medals or the classified files that would never be declassified, but the ripple effect. Teaching people to be better, to see better, to lead with humility instead of arrogance. One person at a time, creating leaders who actually gave a damn about the people they led. She stood, packed her gear methodically. The next mission launched in 6 hours, just enough time to grab a few hours of sleep and a hot meal. Outside, the sun was rising. The desert turned from black to gray to gold, shadows retreating as light claimed the landscape. And in that golden light, Evelyn Carter prepared for whatever came next. Because she always did, and she always would. The most dangerous person in the room doesn't need to prove it. They don't need recognition or validation or applause. They just need to show up, do the work, save the lives, make the hard calls, teach the next generation to be better than the last, and let the world figure out the rest. Because real power isn't about authority or rank or how many people salute you when you walk into a room. It's about impact. It's about the lives you touch and the people you help become better versions of themselves. It's about making choices that matter when nobody's watching and nobody will ever know. Carter had learned that lesson a long time ago, paid for it in scars and sleepless nights and relationships she'd sacrificed to do this work. And now, finally, So had Brennan. The quiet ones, the ones nobody saw coming, the ones who didn't announce their presence or demand attention, were usually the ones who changed the world. Not because they were perfect, not because they never made mistakes or never doubted themselves, but because they cared enough to try, to keep trying, even when it cost them everything. That was the lesson. That was the truth. And it was a truth worth fighting for, worth bleeding for, worth everything it demanded. Carter shouldered her pack and walked out into the desert morning, ready for whatever came next. Because some battles never end. But that didn't mean they weren't worth fighting, and some people, the quiet, determined ones who refused to give up, would keep fighting them anyway. One mission at a time. One life at a time. Until the work was done or they couldn't fight anymore. That was the choice. And Carter had made hers a long time ago. She wasn't stopping now.